Next on the stage, we are going to have an international speaker, Richard Maloney. Richard Maloney is an entrepreneur, world-leading engagement expert. He founded Engage and Grows in 2012. Using his unique engagement and culture methodology, he had helped 40 supporting teams to grand finals, and he had been associated with 7 elite Australian sports teams. He then adopted the group activation system he had implemented in sports to business. From there, Engage and Grows Global was born, achieving instant and overwhelmingly successful results in SME, corporate, and government sectors around the world. He expanded the business to over 300 licensed employee engagement coaches, represented in over 80 countries, achieving outstanding success and immediate results every time. He is also an author of 3 books on employee engagement and personal development. So welcome on stage, Richard Maloney, the founder of Engage and Grows, and he will talk about as well employee engagement in the new era. Richard, welcome on board, and the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, I can't see anyone. I can only see my screen, and I don't see a chat box, so I'll kick off. Firstly, it is a great pleasure to be here. I'm in Melbourne, Australia here, so I have just translated a lovely greeting for you. Sazia Oran Mindeng Kivel Telek Kozni. And I hope that makes sense to my Hungarian friends. It's a great pleasure. It is the first time that Engage and Grow. We are now in 50 countries, are extending our love and our support through the Hungarian community. And I'm looking forward to speaking slowly and giving you as much information as possible about the success and what we're up to around the world. The agenda for today, ladies and gentlemen, is about the new world of work, how to get 100% virtual team engagement, because that is the where we live now, access to high-performance plan model, the 6 steps to employee engagement, multiple case studies, proven activities, and obviously a chance for anyone here that really wants to take, in my opinion, or in our opinion, very sharp, fast, highly actionable skills into the workplace to get people happy again and productive. So if I can, you've been going through a lot today. Make sure you have a pen and paper and write down as much as you can, purely because it is the best way to learn. And obviously, if you can, close down all your devices, because we do have a lot going on these days. I'd really like to maximize this opportunity with you. At the end of this session, and I'm being told it's going for about 21 minutes or 23 minutes, I'm more than happy to take any questions, but we do have a gift for you at the end as well, should you be interested. And thanking you, I guess, for hanging around and for coming on the journey with me. What I'm doing is a real passion of mine, has been a passion of mine since I was maybe 17 years old. I'm now 45 years old. I'm looking forward to sharing all my experiences with you. So this webinar or workshop is for C-suite, HR managers, business owners, middle managers, aspiring leaders, and coaches and consultants. Bit about me before I begin, because I have a lot to get through. As I said, I live here in Melbourne, Australia, with a young family, my 3 daughters and my wife, Kristen, and my dog, Bella. And I was with my my eldest tonight, which is Amelia, who's a 6-year-old. And she says to me, I said to her tonight, darling, because it's 8:30 here, 9 o'clock here in Melbourne, so I'm sitting at home. I said, I'm on a workshop, a webinar tonight to some more friends in Hungary, on the other side of the world. And she says to me, Daddy, is that a place where, you know, people are always hungry? Are they going to be eating on the webinar? Now, to me, I lost it. I lost it completely and laughed a lot. But maybe to my friends in Hungary, that could be a resident joke, and I do apologise. But I just wanted to share some insight. We do have a funny family and a lovely family, and we're looking forward to expressing, as I said, our love into your community. So, as mentioned, I do have authored a couple of books and have just released this book here too, Stress-Free: How to Thrive Under Pressure in Unprecedented Times. So everything I want to teach you tonight has really come from trial and error. And so working with 7 elite sports teams over a 35-year journey or 20-year journey as an elite athlete myself, and really reverse engineering how to create high levels of culture in small teams and large organizations and within individuals as well very quickly. So when I brought this idea to the world in 2012, it was a very tough journey because I had a different strategy as opposed to everyday training. Everyday training was good, but it wasn't getting the results that big organizations and small businesses were after to get maximum productivity, profitability, and happiness within an organization. So as mentioned, the sporting organization really helped me design this. So we've grown very quickly. We are now known as the number one in the world, number one employee engagement licensing company in the world. We do majority of our programs online, which is why when COVID came through here and all that, we have over 500 coaches now all around the world running these programs in every industry. And we have business in French, in Spanish, in Turkish, have multilingual programs and dashboards and technology all designed now. And so this really is called a group activation system. So what that means is we're getting people activated. There's a big difference between putting knowledge into people and activating people. And so I started to see that when I was a middle manager for corporate and government organisations travelling Australia many years ago, finding that unless we got people activated in the brain and in the heart, it was very hard to create high levels of engagement. And so the reason why this is very exciting, in particular with Hungary, because Hungary has a connection now. We really feel that, well, we know now in particular, this is the best time for our coaches. And the most important time for what we're doing is to make a major impact because of the way the world has now gone with the virtual office now becoming a major reality, and it's very distant between employees to create that high levels of connection. So if you're a HR manager, if you're a business coach or a senior executive, we've definitely found ways over the last 8 years to fast track the enjoyment factor, the engagement and the profitability of businesses now in a way that is pretty fast track and cutting. And so the new world of work, now a lot of people would have an understanding of this, but in particular, there really is an overhaul and a celebration of new leadership now. And what I mean now, you could be seeing this in different countries, but they're really, the good leaders, the leaders of the past have been found out, and there's new leaders coming through. And so we want to get behind those leaders who are heart-based leaders to really bring the magic and the energy back into the minds and hearts of their people. The fat is being trimmed quite simply means that companies are now either decentralizing or centralizing in some capacity, but more so they are only looking for the best employees and then packing them up and paying them more. We are becoming more centralized as a one world because of the closeness of communication and because the ability now not to work in one office. So we are in multiple houses, but we are becoming closer. There's a lot of healing underway right now to help people really get back to what's really important. So a lot of people are losing employment in jobs that they weren't really happy in. And so there is a realignment in some capacity for people that want to, if they're serious about their life, is to now choose in a new direction where they want to go. So that's great for business because businesses have been carrying a lot of dead weight, you could say, a lot of employees that don't want to be there. And that's one of the reasons why we've grown so quickly, because we actually thrive when people are in an organization that don't want to be there. I'll show you in just a second. And the heart will now rule. So in the new world of work, most people would be coming into work now and seeing, have a look at that. Do you see anything different there? Well, the difference there are now exclusion zones. Those exclusion zones will simply be nearly a day-to-day standard requirement now for health and regulation reasons, that people are distancing and wearing face masks in many countries. Here in Melbourne, we've just been through a 6-month lockdown, the biggest lockdown in the world. So we've just come out of that last Sunday, and now we've got to 0 cases. So we've rebalanced to 0 for 6 days in a row. But having said that, the government have now come out and said all workplaces will not be going back yet, but when they do, there will be exclusion zones and there will be mask wearing for the next 6 months. So this is a reality. And so things are going to be even faster now than ever, because we have seen that most office buildings will be shut down, because most office buildings, that's an overhead they don't need. Employee engagement now, employee connection is absolutely critical. There's no question about that, because how people connect now is the number one thing to Deloitte, to all major organizations, because of the separation factor. So the new stage is really when we go back home, we have to set up a new environment. We have to get really better with our time management. Then we have to how to manage our mind health. Okay, mind health and team health are the most pressing issues now globally. Because people are separated, and I'll show you some statistics now, and for obvious reasons. So what they're saying now is 90% of the young workforce are having difficulty working remotely. That's nearly 100%. Now that is in an adjustment phase, but having said that, they're our next leaders. So we need to train them and teach them very carefully from here on in. 75% of the workforce feels less connected than ever. Now you can understand why. 66% feel less informed about what is going on within their company. Now that really comes down to our leaders managing well, our leaders leading well. Because if you're not sharing the vision on a weekly basis, if you're not getting everyone's buy-in, whether it's a community leadership vision or if it's an individual vision, they still need to be part of that. That's why employee engagement is so critical. So to be effective, people need to stay deeply connected to their work and the work of their teams. But the key here is it's not just about staying connected. What we're seeing around the world, generally speaking, is people need to actually reconnect. So now is the time to actually reconnect with your people. So the strategies in place to the old adage, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care, is more prevalent now more than ever. So here's a question for you. The old survey run by Gallup, I think it was, what makes people the happiest? The reason why this is very important as a HR manager or a business coach or business leader or an aspiring business leader is because this really underpins productivity. What makes people the happiest? What would you say? Now, I can't see chat here, so I'm just guessing, you're assuming. Based on a study over 75 years, out of people that were living in the slums or people who were in the ivory tower of the New York Soho buildings and so forth, over generations and hundreds of thousands of people, what makes people the happiest, quite simply, is multiple and meaningful relationships. And so it is our job, really comes down to this. If you want to beat your competitor, if you want to be number one in your industry, this, my friends, you may have the best technology, which is great, but you'll be very soon meeting a competitor. But that competitor, if you have more multiple and meaningful relationships, cannot get access to your top employees, whether it's live or whether it's online. Because if you have this is what they say, if you have in your organization or your teams, say, for instance, that your competitor approached your best employees or your high-performing employees and asked them to come and work for them, the facts are, roughly speaking, if they were given about 10% or 15% pay rise, that if they've got about 4 or more very, very close friends in that organization, they are less likely to stay. But if they've only got 1 or less very close friend in that organization, they're more likely to go. So the cost of re-employing, retraining, building networks, training, advertising is extreme, absolutely extreme. And to the point where we'll show you some stats soon on how much it costs to actually replace a high level of executive or high level leader to a standard entry level leader. So it's very, very critical. But most companies don't see it that way because they're just based in yesterday's thinking. So there's 3 types of employees in every organization. Someone comes to work, they do less than is expected. Someone comes to work, they do just what is expected. Someone comes to work and they do more than is expected. So our role is to take pressure off leaders because they are the ones that really need to lead with vision, but teach them, most importantly, teach them how to fish, teach them how to get their people into this place of coming to work and being highly engaged. If you look around the world today, in particular, the world stats saying, these would be changing now, depending on what's happening in different countries, is 15% come to work and they do more than is expected. 67% come to work and they just do what is expected. And 18% come to work and they do less than is expected. Now, think about your teams. Think about the organizations you've worked with in the past. And think about the organization you'd love to lead in the future. So what does that look like if you were going to have your team in a rowboat? Quite simply is Your team in a rowboat would be, you would have 2 people rowing towards success out of 10. You would have obviously 5 or 6 people watching the scenery along the way, and you would have 2 people actively sinking your boat. And so the sad thing here is the good thing here is it's very easy to get the yellow into the green. It's very easy to do that. And what that does then, it actually sorts out these employees here in the red. Okay, these are global stats, right? Every country is different, but generally speaking, they're very similar. And so you need these people here in the red to jump in the boat and start rowing, or you need them to jump out of the boat. You need to do that in a way that doesn't block up your legalities, okay, that doesn't get you in legal trouble. Different countries for different laws. We found a way now to actively get people out of the boat or get them into the boat in a way that they deselect themselves. Very powerful, because it's called a tribe movement. And so what they're saying here is if you have people in the yellow and in the red, they're saying now, or Gallup's saying that you're losing 34% of their salary before they even walk in the door. And so if that's a concern for you, which it should be as a leader, there is wasted money on the table. What are you doing about that? In the old days, we would just put them through a training. We'd give them one-on-one coaching. That's fine, but the stats are saying nothing's really changed. All right. And so what we want to do is really move these people into the green very quickly. And so here's one of our coaches, Aymerich, out of Ibero-America, actually from Spain, I think, so which is in that area. Looking at how we work here. So we then do surveys before and after and midway, all programs, and there's different levels of programs, these group activation programs, and we do stats beforehand, 9 quick questions, 60-second anonymous surveys to try and find out who here is highly disengaged, and actively disengaged. And we have got these type of results because we aren't doing traditional training, we're activating people. I'll show you how in a second. And so you can also see here that we benchmark not only on the global Net Promoter Score, and which is the 37 here, or 37 NPS for 2019, 220 Engage and Grow benchmark, and also the Net Promoter there is for this company. So we've actually outdone everyone. So that's the average globally. That's our averages of Engage and Grow's growth. And in this program, obviously you'll see that she went 100%. So terrific job. So how are people motivated? It's really important to understand how our people are motivated. Firstly, understand their neurological motivators. Now, as a business owner and leader and a HR manager, it's very difficult. Most people don't even know how they're motivated themselves through pain, pleasure, reward, punishment, self-direction, self-improvement, and transcendent purpose. 6 core human needs, which is Maslow or these type of organizations, similar to that, and also to understand how we learn the quickest. And so through discussing, experiencing, but most importantly, teaching others. Hence why this is the mold to activation. And so if our employees don't know how they're activated, we don't know how they're activated, we need to put in structures and systems which subliminally move people into a tribal movement, a group activation. And that's what we're about. Making sure that everything we do, every time over a program is impacting one of these all the time. Okay, if I was to ask you, what's the best way, what's the 2 most powerful ways to make people change? What would you say? Now, again, I can't hear you or see you or hear the chat, but if you were to make someone change, because if you need to create culture, because culture quite simply is when everyone is thinking and heading in the same direction. That's culture. Thinking and heading in the same direction, as opposed to a bad culture, which means everyone has their own ideas on how things should be done. So to get people aligned individually now, you need to change the individual now. There's 2 ways to do it. You can do it through hypnosis, or you can do it through constant reprogramming and repetition. Now, you can't hypnotize people in the workplace, right? Well, you can if you want, but it's too hard to do because we're working. But the repetition and reprogram is an untapped source. So if you were learning to drive a car, you would just repeat, and you've got the program. Same thing needs to go in the workplace. And so we need to take the 6 steps to employee engagement to get them up here. So every team, every different industry, they're all at different levels. And so first we need to evaluate, which what we did earlier with that survey. Then we need to get everyone's buy-in. And we create a collective accountability. We really get them to unite then. Okay, again, move back. Again, we're moving them into the boat, moving them out of the red into the yellow, into the front of the boat so they're rowing forward. Get them to align, get them to engage, and get them to then continuously grow, which creates equality, unity, trust, and truth. When you get to a place like this, you are then becoming a high-performing elite team with everyday people. Okay, so we work off this highly engaged virtual plan, just checking the time here. And just bear with me here and I'll show you this. So what this means, because again, I've got 23 minutes to cover off a 3-day training here. And so what we're saying here is to get a great, highly engaged virtual team, you need strong leadership, you need strong skill sets, and you need strong culture. Now, when you get a strong culture and strong leadership, you create high levels of loyalty. When you get high levels of leadership, high levels of skill set, you create a team of excellence. When you get strong skill set and strong culture, you create strong productivity, high levels of productivity, which really creates a highly engaged team. Now, these areas around here is what we need to focus on to create the highly engaged virtual team, because all of these have different activities, different actions, again, based on how mature your team is or your organization is. So let's look at a couple of them because I'll run out of time if I looked at all of them. Solution focused. A great question to ask your people is when you first go in there, which I ask all our coaches to do on day one, is to ask them this one question. If we were to be best, number one in the industry, if we were to be number one in the industry, what needs to improve? And then ask them this question in a way that they feel safe, okay, which is all through the training. And what you'll find is once we have that understanding, then we need to break the company down into 2 major categories. Okay, so for instance, we need to break it down into the brain of the business and the heart of the business. The brain being the process, systems, governance, products, and procedures. And the heart of the business is the behaviors, the engagement, the culture, the leadership, the relationships, and so forth. So what we want to do is once we get all their answers, then you can put them into 2 different areas. So for instance, here we had 9 people in that activity say communication needs to improve if we want to be number one in the industry as a team or as an organization. Again, you can do it in a tribe or you can do it further out. But there's different structures for different sizes. 6 people here, but you always usually find that you'll get majority here as opposed to 2 people here, 2 people there, because most companies are focusing purely on the brain all the time. But the most important thing is what we're seeing now, especially now with COVID in particular, is this is the key area. The soft skills we've always known are the key skills. And so what are a few heart-based ideas? So you give them the ability or the activity then to every week come up with one heart-based activity to improve the heart of the business and move them away from the brain, because the brain's the easy stuff. The heart is obviously the harder stuff. So here's some examples, interviewing each other, different silos, different people, getting to know people. Very simplistic stuff here, but simple is sometimes easy and the best. Lots of ice-breaking activities. And also there's all sorts of things you can do. There's hundreds of things. We've actually got a list of nearly 600 things you can do if you're looking for, but we want to keep people measured. So you can measure people if they're delivering on these activities. Again, I'm just giving you some takeaways here you can actually use tomorrow should you be interested. What's the number one thing we need to improve on to be number one? What do we need to improve on to be number one in the industry? Then hold people account to what they want to do to build the heart of the business. And so again, at the end of the week, they can come in and measure themselves. So you can see here, Mary Ann, well, she's very engaged. She's deliberately engaged. She's now delivering on all her little activities. Scott isn't, Tim wasn't, Karen wasn't, but what happens is the tribe movement will push people into delivering. And so there is a bit of exposure here, subtle push, and make people engaged. So as I said, that's one of 30 different things depending on the organization, but it's a very simple and powerful thing. So if you kept that going for 12 weeks, you'll find a significant change, but you, the leader, need to actually do it as well, obviously. When it comes to recognition, again, the number one area for the issue in business is recognition. It really is. We've all been there. A lot of heart, a lot of effort, no reward. People steal it. Other people acknowledge it, but they don't give it back. And so how are you recognising your staff? And so quite simply is recognising your staff, just to get my notes here, and getting people to literally every week pick one person in our tribe, in the team, in the organisation who they want to reward and recognise each week, weekly, and for a reason why, based on the heart of the business. Okay, so getting people to really focus on here, because this, quite simply, is where the world needs to be. And we're seeing that through statistics today that the best organisations by far by none, are all heart-focused leadership, where the world's going today. And it's very simple, but you need to reprogram the thinking in your tribes, in your teams, to be heart-focused, because when the heart's looking after itself, the brain will be fast-tracked. I hope that makes sense. Again, I'm talking to a keyhole in the computer here. But what's really exciting here is you can see here that you start with one team and you get them to mold into different silos. So you spread the message out, but you've got to start with the heart of the organisation, which is probably best to be your executive team or your senior leaders in some capacity, depending on the size of your organisation and department. And you can blend different departments in and so forth. But it's about simplicity. It's about human interaction. And that's very key in this new world of work. And so there's ways and means to do this online. So you want to get your groups activated and we want to get your people activated in a way that's heart-centric, okay, because home is where the heart is. And so as you'll see with millennials coming through now more than ever, they're looking for purpose, they're looking for passion, they're looking for connection, and they're looking for that family environment. And so, again, I repeat, if you're not changing behaviours, if you're not changing habits, it's very difficult to fast-track a high-performing culture. You can get there in the end, but you can fast-track it far quicker when there's constant repetition in certain areas, but you've got to know when to pull off because you can burn people out. Okay, so I hope that makes sense again. So it's about keeping your organisation extremely fit. Now, fit being mind and fit being heart and fit being family. Because very quickly you might have one argument between your people, which would break things up very quickly. So you've got to always measure your team. Every 3 months, do a quick survey on the measurement of your team. Here's another one of our coaches, Yoseba Perez. Again, did a pre-program survey. 15% coming to work and doing more than expected. And at the end of it, you can see here they were 100%. Now, that's what we're talking about here, and that's the secret sauce to engage and grow. Because I studied elite teams, and elite teams are on the knife edge of success. And so all we did is systemize this in a way to take it into the business world, and within 3 or 4 years, we're in 50 countries. So we have multiple different programs, staging from sales programs to millennial programs to women programs to sports programs. We have stage programs for 2 years. Usually it's like a year or two, but we can make change within 5 to 6 weeks. But the whole thing is you've got to keep the fitness up of your team from heart and brain. It's like training sessions. If you go in and train, okay, for the first time and go into a training session, you've got some inspiration, but you haven't created a cultural shift. You've got to keep people accountable to it in there. So we come into your organisation every week, or we do it online, and we just help the leaders become outstanding leaders and get your next aspiring leaders to step up, because the best organisations have a critical mass of leaders. We also have new engagement with the online programs now, the Achievers Club, which we stepped them up from Achievers to Creators to Executive Club. Again, they're 45-minute sessions for up to 6 to 8 people, which is where the teams are sort of heading now to fast-track them and so forth. And so we do have a team, as we've mentioned, of over 400 or 500 coaches now in multiple countries around the world. And this is why it's really exciting with our growth into Hungary. Quite simply is, the individual coaches, we know that your community out there is perfectly suited for what we're doing. And we're looking forward to really taking our skills and helping you out. And so in closing, I hope I've given you some insight. Again, 25 minutes is really nothing for what I wanted to share, because I usually run 3-day trainings, or our coaches do. But those that have been around, please make sure that I think Bertie will put this in now, the link, so you can get access to a video course. So Brad Sugars, who's the #1 small business coach in the world in America, Marshall Goldsmith, who again is the #1 executive coach in America, and Mark Thompson is the #1 CEO coach in America. And I teamed up with, because we're pals, we travel the world on stage together, and we just did a 10-chapter video course, and we'd love to give that to you for free for partaking in this workshop today, and obviously spending your valuable time with me, as I've never met you before, and I just want to say thank you very much. So on that note, if you'd like to connect with me in any way, please connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a friend request or a message, or you can catch up with Bertay or Ishik, our CEO, who's the main office is in Turkey, and we've got an office here in Melbourne and Sydney, Australia as well. We are in head office in London as well, and in Mexico and France as well. So we're quite a global entity, and so it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm looking forward to possibly seeing how we can help you in your organisation or in your business. Thank you.